The weight of chains. The Galactic Empire had ruled for so long that most species had forgotten what freedom tasted like. Its banners flew over 10,000 worlds, its fleets patrolled the stars like an iron tide, and its decrees carried the weight of eternity. For humanity, conquered in its first stumbling steps into the wider galaxy, the Empire was all they had ever known. Earth itself had been stripped of sovereignty. Its oceans fed imperial shipyards. Its soil grew grain for soldiers on distant battlefronts, and its people were conscripted as expendable fodder in wars not their own. Children grew up learning the names of alien emperors, not human heroes. Centuries passed, and humanity's spirit seemed crushed beneath alien boots. But not everyone bent the knee. Captain Elias Ward leaned against the cold hull of the freighter Aurora's Ghost, watching the stars blur beyond the viewport. His hair was iron gray, his face scarred by battles fought in shadow, yet his eyes still burned with the stubborn fire that had carried him through decades of resistance. The Empire called him a terrorist. To his people, he was a reminder that submission was a choice, and some would rather die than kneel. Still brooding, a voice cut in. Ward turned to see Dr. Maya Chen, her black hair pulled into a loose braid, datapad clutched against her chest. Once, she had been one of the Empire's star scientists, forced into service on weapons projects. Now she was their most valuable defector. Her sharp eyes studied him with a mixture of weariness and determination. "You're wasting time staring at stars, Captain," she said softly. "We may have finally found a way to break them." Ward arched a brow. Break the Empire. Bold words. Most of us are just trying to survive the week. Maya's lips curved into the faintest of smiles as she handed him the datapad. Lines of code and schematics flickered across the screen. Ward frowned, scanning them. "The relay nexus," she explained. "It links the entire fleet together. Orders, navigation, logistics, all dependent on this system. I've found a weakness. If we can infiltrate it, we can disrupt everything. Fleets cut off from commands. Governors isolated. It would be chaos." Ward stared at her. "You're telling me the beating heart of the Empire has a flaw? And you just discovered it?" "Not discovered. Built it into their system years ago. My little act of rebellion. They never noticed." For a moment, silence filled the cabin, broken only by the hum of the freighter's engines. Ward felt the weight of her words. Generations of humans had lived and died under alien rule, their resistance crushed before it could spark. Now, here was a chance, not just to resist, but to win. His jaw tightened. If this is true, then humanity has a weapon the Empire never expected. Maya met his gaze, her voice steady. "Then we use it, or we remain slaves forever." Ward looked back at the endless stars. For the first time in his life, they didn't look like cages. They looked like doors waiting to be kicked open. The fire ignites. The Aurora's Ghost slipped silently through a forgotten trade lane, its patched hull trembling under the strain of its engines. In the mess hall, rough men and women crowded around a flickering holo table. They were miners, smugglers, ex-soldiers, human fragments scattered across the galaxy. Now, Captain Ward was trying to forge them into something more. "This isn't another raid." Ward's voice cut through the low murmur. "We're not stealing supplies or sabotaging patrols. Dr. Chen has given us a weapon, one that can cripple the Empire itself." The room fell quiet. Suspicion flickered in hardened eyes. These people had lost too much to believe in miracles. Ward gestured to Maya, who brought the relay nexus schematics to life in blue holograms. "Every command the Empire issues runs through this system. Cut it, and their fleets choke. Overload it, and they devour each other." A grizzled mercenary scoffed. "Even if that's true, we're a handful of rust buckets against a navy that spans the stars." "Maybe," Ward admitted, his gaze steady. "But when has humanity ever won by playing fair? We make do with what we have. We build what we need. We turn desperation into strength." The miners nodded. They understood. Hadn't they turned drills into cannons before? Maya stepped forward. "I've written a virus. Slip it into the relay nexus and every ship tied to it will fall into disarray. Not forever, but long enough to strike." A silence, heavier this time. They all knew what she was asking. a strike at the very core of the Empire. Ward broke it. This isn't just about revenge. This is about ending the chains. No more conscription. No more bombs on our cities. We fight, and we fight to win. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then the mercenary who had scoffed earlier slammed a fist against the table. If we're going to bind, let's make sure the galaxy remembers the fire. A cheer erupted, ragged but growing, until it filled the room. For the first time, the scattered fragments of humanity felt like one people again. In the following weeks, the resistance grew bolder. Freighters vanished from Imperial convoys, reappearing in human hands, refitted with crude weapons. Asteroid miners welded armor plates onto haulers, turning them into lumbering battleships. Colonists dug up mothballed fighters from old wars and gave them new life. Every raid carried risk. Every loss cut deep. But every victory swelled their numbers as new volunteers poured in, fueled by whispered rumors that humanity was preparing for something greater than survival. The Empire noticed. Admiral Kael'tor, stationed in Earth's orbit, watched holofeeds of smoldering resistance strikes. His mandibles clicked in irritation. Vermin, he spat. They mistake chaos for strength. His solution was simple. Fae. Imperial warships descended upon Earth's largest cities. Plasma bombardments turned neighborhoods to ash. Millions of innocents burned in a single night. Ward received the transmissions in silence. Around him, faces crumpled, some with grief, some with rage. Maya's hand trembled as she closed the feed. They mean to break us. Ward's voice was steel. Then they've made a mistake. They've united us instead. On the eve of their boldest mission, humanity's ragtag fleet assembled in the shadow of a gas giant. Ships of every shape and size floated in loose formation, patched together with courage and desperation. Ward stood before them in a broadcast, his scarred face lit by the glow of the command console. Tomorrow we stop surviving, he told them. Tomorrow we stop running. Tomorrow, we strike at the heart of the Empire. We fight, not as slaves, not as subjects, but as humans. And tomorrow, we begin to shatter the chains that bound us for centuries. A thunder of voices answered across the fleet. The fire had ignited. The day of fire. The human fleet tore into real space like sparks from a burning forge. More than 100 ships, haulers turned gunships, miners craft-clad in armor, stolen Imperial frigates bearing human markings, emerged in formation around the relay nexus. The station loomed ahead, a colossal ring of black steel orbiting a dying star. Energy arcs pulsed through its spines, feeding the communication lattice that bound the Empire together. Destroy it, and the mightiest armada in the galaxy would be deaf and blind. But standing between humanity and that hope was Admiral Kael'tor's war fleet, sleek cruisers, destroyers, and carriers gleaming with alien precision. Their numbers dwarfed the Resistance ships 10-1. Ward's voice carried across the comms. Remember Earth. Remember the chains. Today, we fight as one people. The battle began. The first salvo shattered the void. Imperial cruisers unleashed plasma lances that ripped through human hulls, scattering molten fragments into space. But the Resistance answered with raw ingenuity. Cargo haulers overloaded their engines and rammed straight into enemy lines, detonating in blinding bursts. Mining ships fired cutting beams meant for rock, carving through alien armor like paper. Ward's flagship, the Aurora's Ghost, danced between enemy fire with reckless maneuvers. His crew fought like people with nothing left to lose. Every shot, every sacrifice, was a defiance carved into the stars. Meanwhile, deep within the chaos, Dr. Maya Chen led a strike team aboard a cloaked shuttle. Their target, the relay nexus's control spire. Explosions shook the station as they breached a docking bay, blasters cracking against alien guards. Inside, corridors stretched like veins of steel. Maya clutched the data core containing her virus, each step driven by desperation and resolve. Back in the battle, the Resistance fleet was faltering. Too many ships burned, too many lives extinguished in silence. Kael'tor watched from his flagship, mandibles clicking with smug satisfaction. Pathetic, he hissed. This species was born to crawl. But Ward heard none of it. He locked eyes on Kael'tor's flagship and gave the order. All ships, follow me. We cut off the head. The Aurora's ghost led a suicidal charge. Flak fire shredded its armor, but human pilots flew in close, too close for the Empire's massive guns to track. Fighters darted between cruiser hulls, planting explosives in their engines. The void blazed with wreckage. Inside the Nexus, Maya's team reached the spire's core. A swirling lattice of energy pulsed above, the heartbeat of the Empire's network. She jammed the virus drive into the console. Warnings flashed. System screamed. Then, like a whisper in the dark, her code spread, sliding into the veins of the Empire. The effect was instant. Across the battlefield, Imperial ships froze mid-maneuver. Fire arcs went wild. Cruisers turned their guns on allies, confused by scrambled orders. Fleets across the galaxy, entire war fronts, fell silent as the relay's collapse rippled outward. Ward seized the moment. His battered flagship rammed through the shielding of Kael'Tor's vessel. Boarding teams stormed inside. Ward himself cut his way to the command deck, blaster in hand. Kael'Tor rose, towering and furious. "You are nothing," he roared. Ward's reply was a single shot, straight through the Admiral's chest. The alien crumpled, disbelief frozen in his eyes. The relay nexus erupted behind them, a chain of explosions tearing it apart. As debris scattered into the void, silence fell across the battlefield. Humanity's fleet, battered and blooded, stood victorious against the impossible. For the first time in living memory, the Empire had been broken. The shattered throne. When the relay nexus burned, it was not just a station that fell. It was an empire. Across the galaxy, Imperial fleets suddenly found themselves deaf, blind, and leaderless. Admirals stranded mid-campaign. Governors cut off from their overlords. Command chains fractured into silence. What had once been a seamless machine of oppression collapsed into chaos in a single day. And everywhere the news spread, the enslaved rose. Species that had endured millennia of servitude seized their chance. Uprisings erupted on dozens of worlds. Chains were broken, garrisons overrun, banners of rebellion raised where imperial standards once flew. At the center of it all stood humanity's ragged fleet, scarred but unbroken. On the battered bridge of the Aurora's ghost, Captain Elias Ward gazed at the wreckage. The relay nexus was gone, reduced to drifting debris lit by the glow of a dying star. His ship's systems screamed warnings, his crew bruised and blooded. Yet their cheers filled the air. Against impossible odds, they had shattered the unshatterable. Dr. Maya Chen appeared at his side, her uniform scorched, hands still trembling from the battle. Her virus had worked beyond even her calculations. The Empire's vast communications web was in ruins. "They'll never recover from this," she said quietly. Ward studied her. "No, but the galaxy won't forget the cost." His eyes lingered on the casualty reports, names scrolling endlessly. Every victory, it seemed, demanded blood. Maya lowered her gaze. "We've opened the door. What we build on the other side, that will define us." Weeks later, the galaxy had changed beyond recognition. On Earth, for the first time in centuries, no alien banners flew overhead. People filled the streets, celebrating not survival, but freedom. Across human colonies, bonfires blazed in the night, smoke rising like a promise to the stars. Ward returned to Earth a hero, though he despised the word. He walked among the crowds, scarred and weary, offering no speeches, only silent respect for those who had fallen. Statues rose for the nameless fighters who had given their lives. Entire walls were carved with names, so no sacrifice would vanish into dust. Maya stood beside him at a memorial. "We've done the impossible," she whispered. Ward shook his head. "We've only broken chains. Now we have to prove we can live without forging new ones." Already, alien envoys sought alliances, wary but hopeful. Former slaves looked to humanity as liberators, some even as leaders. A power vacuum yawned across the stars, and in the void, opportunity and danger waited. On the deck of the rebuilt Aurora's ghost, Ward addressed a council of resistance leaders and newly freed allies. "We shattered the throne of tyrants," he said, voice steady. "But freedom is fragile. If we let greed and fear guide us, We'll rebuild the same empire we destroyed. Humanity must stand not as conquerors, but as guardians of the free. Silence followed, then a slow nodding of heads. A pact was formed, not an empire, but a coalition, a promise to build something better. That night, Ward stood alone beneath Earth's skies. The stars glittered above, no longer as prisons but as pathways. He thought of the billions who had died to give humanity this chance, of the day they had risen not to kneel, but to fight. His reflection was quiet, almost a prayer. We were meant to break. Instead, we endured. We were meant to kneel. Instead, we stood. And today, humanity shattered the Galactic Empire. The wind carried his words into the night. The stars waited, and for the first time in history, they belonged to humanity.